All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here, we're doing a preview and prediction for a ranked matchup in the Big Ten between Illinois and Indiana. Hoosiers 4-point favorites, 52.5 is the total. NBC, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time from Bloomington. Everything started with the Illinois offense against the Hoosier defense. This is a group for Illinois we've had a couple of weeks to look at, including against a quality Duke football team. And they struggled for the most part early on in that first half, but as the game wore on, they started to really generate big plays through the air, and they're also able to start churning out some physicality on the ground. For Illinois, though, you're going to be going into hostile territory once again at night against the Hoosiers. Luke Altmaier's been playing some pretty good football. 72% comp rate, 8 touchdowns, no picks. He's also ran for a score as well. He was very efficient against Duke. That was his best game of the year. 71%, 300 yards, and 3 scores. This is a guy who I think is, working into a tough hole with the lack of skill at wide receiver. Hank Beatty is, impressively stepped up. Justin Bowick has been nice with 3 touchdowns. Hudson Clement, I think, is your overall most skilled pass catcher out of the slot. He can make plays downfield. Malik Elsley, Colin Dixon, I'm still waiting for those two guys to break out. They really haven't just yet. But Illinois, Nick, the biggest concern of me coming into the year is they would just not have the horses at pass catcher to be able to make plays. Now you're going to be turning around and going up against the Indiana defense that last year everyone saw them be incredibly elite. They've started the year off against a very weak schedule, so you don't really have much of a read on them. But based on what I saw last year, they had, strong guys who could cover. Angelo Pons at corner, of course, leads the way. Jamari Sharp has stepped in well as that CB2. In the slot, Devon Boykin's playing very good football. Mari Farrell at safety. I love what he brings to the table. This is a group that I think is going to do very well when it comes to limiting plays and shutting down those pass windows. The offensive line for Illinois is a stout group. It's one that got torn up by Vinny Anthony early on. He had 3 sacks for Duke in that first half. J.C. Davis was really getting cooked. The guy who's a really good left tackle, especially when it comes to run blocking. At right tackle, Melvin Priestley, on the other hand, has not been very impressive. I think it's a nice physical interior, led by Josh Kruwitz at center, and then a left guard in Josh Getzky. The rushing attack for Illinois has just not been very good, I would say. It's not been an efficient unit against Duke. I know they're getting some running yards late in that game, but they still had less than 3 yards per attempt in that contest, and they haven't exactly been tearing it up against some of their lower-tier opponents. They're going to be getting back Aiden Laurie, I think, for this game, and that's great. He's a 200-pounder to match Keaton Fiegan, who, for being 255 pounds, has pretty impressive speed. Khalil Valentine, he's more of a slashing runner for this football team. So they have a nice group. It's a respectable supporting cast. Is it enough, though, to go into hostile territory in Bloomington, Nick, and put on a clinic?
It might be tough for Illinois here. This is going to be a very loud and tough environment in Bloomington, Indiana, where this is a team that's really fired up for Indiana. Again, it's really tough to get a read on Indiana, unfortunately, because they went with the easy schedule, not tough, the opposite of a tough schedule for Curt Cignetti. That's what he's decided to do. I'm not going to talk too long about that. This is a big test for them, and this is an opportunity to play against an Illinois offense that has really passed with flying colors so far across the board, pretty much except in the rushing attack. 45 points per game has been really good. Altmaier has been phenomenal, 723 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 0 picks. I mean, he has just been dialed in, and I've been really pleased with him. 71% comp rate, 700 plus yards is all really good from Altmaier when you look at who that he's throwing to. Hank Beatty has been really solid. He's getting the lion's share of the targets with 19 receptions, about 300 yards and a touchdown for him. Bowick, he has just about 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's been a big red zone target. I would like them to get Hudson Clement and Malik Elsley involved a little bit more. Colin Dixon, I'd like to see him get involved a little bit more as well. I'd like to see him kind of spread it out. Hank Beatty is getting all the targets. I'd like to see them maybe get somebody else involved. As for the rushing attack, I think Fagan's a pretty good back, 222 yards for him, 3 scores. Valentine's a good slasher, 158 yards and 2 scores. Lowry, if he can play and is up to his full level, he has about 7.1 yards per attempt and 2 scores so far this season. I think I've seen a lot from the Illinois offense that has been good. 6.24 yards per play, 4.26 yards per attempt, and 9 touchdowns on the ground. You'd probably like to see a little bit more out of the rushing attack than 4.26, but I'm not going to cry about it. I think this is an offense that can certainly compete with this team here in Indiana. This is an offense I think is really solid overall. As I look at this Indiana defense, it's been really good so far. And again, playing bad teams, so hard to get a full read. 7.7 points per game, about 4 yards per attempt on the ground, about 4.4 yards per play, giving up only 2 rushing touchdowns on the season, only giving up 23 total points through this early slate. I like what they have. They have some good leaders. D'Angelo Pons has been really good. 10 total tackles for him, 3 tackles for loss, a pick and a pass breakup. He's been really solid. Lewis Moore has been really good in the secondary as well, 17 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 picks. A lot of guys with a lot of tackles, a couple different guys with double-digit tackles. They're spreading the wealth. There's no one that's really absolutely dominating in terms of the tackle department. Aiden Fisher, Kean Wyatt are really solid for this team so far. Wyatt's been really good for total tackles for loss for him, 13 total tackles. Fisher, 15 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss. I think this Indiana defense is primed for a really good game here, and they'll get a lot of pressure on Altmaier. The offensive line's been solid for Illinois so far, but I think they're due for a little bit of a weaker game here. I like the pressure, certainly. But again, it's just so hard to get a read on Indiana. They've not played anybody yet. This is a big opportunity. Illinois played a tougher schedule, certainly traveling to Durham and playing Duke, a team that's pretty solid, and winning pretty convincingly when it was all said and done. They absolutely shut out Western Michigan, who at least looked decent against another Big Ten team they played early in the year in Michigan State, and they blew out their FCS opponent earlier on in the first week. So I think Illinois looked better. They've played better teams, and the offense certainly has an opportunity to do so here. What defense is going to show up for Indiana? If they play their full strengths, which I expect them to do so, I think Indiana can really be super competitive in this game and have a great day against an offense that has been really solid for Illinois.
This is an elite run defense as well for Indiana. Last year they were ranked first in the country. This year they're off to a hot start. They ended up giving up, I think it was like a 70 or 80-yard rushing touchdown to the Old Dominion quarterback, and that significantly boosted that total in week 1 to over 200 yards. But for the entire game, they were shutting them down. Mikael Kamara, of course, one of the top edge rushers in the country, is leading this unit. Tyreek Tucker, Keelan Wyatt, Stephen Daly. I still think this is a very good defensive line despite losing some key components last year. So I think Kamara's going to have opportunities to win as a pass rusher. And I think they're absolutely going to stifle that Illinois run game. So it's going to be up to these receivers to separate and make plays downfield. And mainly in that short to intermediate range, that's where Altmaier is most accurate. Moving to the other side of things, the offense for Indiana going up against that Fighting Illini defense. Indiana, like you said, they haven't played anybody, so they've really been running up the score, building some chemistry. Week 1, they really struggled. They lacked that, inserting a new quarterback of a talented bunch of receivers. Fernando Mendoza had less than 200 yards, no scores in that one, but the last 2 weeks he's bounced back, 200-plus total yards in both, combined 9 touchdowns. He's showcasing nice accuracy, had 95% comp rate against Indiana State. And, of course, it doesn't matter the opponent you're playing, right? When you can put up numbers like that, that is highly impressive. And the one time I don't run Omar Cooper Jr. in DraftKings Fantasy, Nick, he goes off. 207 yards and 4 touchdowns. He finally had a breakout game after a couple of big plays early on in the year. Elijah Surratt was a little bit more quiet. Took a back seat so his kill part could go off. He, of course, is going to be your top dog. He had 3 touchdowns against Kennesaw State week 2 alone. He's going to hog targets. E.J. Williams, I think, is very impressive as well. Jonathan Brady's capable. Holden Stays at tight end is the guy that's going to get some looks. In the backfield, they've been decimating opponents running the football. 300-plus yards in every single game so far rushing. It's a deep backfield. I think it's one of the best 3-headed monsters in the college football. Roman Hemby, Lee Beebe, Kalen Black. These guys have all been very productive and very efficient this year. Of course, they're going to be going up against the Illinois defense. I just don't think it's all that great on the defensive line. I think for them, they have been solid to start the year against the run, but in terms of consistent pass rush from the interior, I think it's lacking. Of course, Gabe Jackas is phenomenal, one of the best edge rushers as well when it comes to nationwide. Leon Lowry's off to a nice start as well. But overall, I just don't like the defensive line. I don't think they're as skilled, in this, what is it, 3-3-5 defense. Jackas is really carrying the load. On the interior, you don't really have any standouts. I think James Thompson's been all right to start the year. Kurt Neal is a solid player. Gentle Hunt as well. I just don't think they're all that great. And I think for Indiana, you're going to be facing a secondary that's highly impressive, but one that just doesn't always seem to click against the pass. Torrey Cox at corner is really struggling this year. Xavier Scott, he's great against the run. That's the theme for the secondaries. They have so many good run stoppers. Miles Scott from his safety spot is really good. And then you got Matthew Bailey, who's also a highly productive tackler and a very efficient guy who plays with good fundamentals. So I love the secondary for them. You have to check some injuries at linebacker. Dylan Rosek, don't know his status. Malachi Hood's had to really play a lot early on this year, and he's played well. I think for Indiana, Nick, this is a team that wants to strike with balance. I love the efficiency, and I think that Mendoza, like you said it in the offseason, is a perfect fit for this scheme. And I think they probably have a very good advantage when it comes to their offensive line as well. Can't, go without talking about those guys. Carter Smith at left tackle is one of the best in the country at his spot. The right tackle spot has also been really good. Khalil Benson's really stepped up his play over the last couple of years. Drew Evans at left guard is also a phenomenal ball player. So I think that Indiana has a significant edge here. But that secondary for Illinois is usually an equalizer due to their ball hawking skills and their intensity downhill.
Yeah, I'm quite high on this Indiana offense. You made a great point there saying that they strike a really good balance, and I've been pleased all off season. I was singing the praises of Fernando Mendoza, saying he would fit like a glove. I ended up taking him as my starting quarterback in my fantasy Power 4 college football fantasy league with my friends, and he has been phenomenal. Yes, it wasn't the greatest week one against and their opponent, but he's come around the last couple of games, and he looked absolutely phenomenal. ODU, that was the week one, I beg your pardon. But he looked great against Kennesaw State looked great against Indiana State, and was absolutely dominant in that game. He was having a phenomenal game against Indiana State. Looked absolutely dialed in. 72% comp rate, 700 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Mendoza has been absolutely incredible. Elijah Sherratt didn't have the greatest game against Indiana State, but there was a key moment where he made a huge block in that matchup that allowed Omar Cooper to score in the red zone. So even when he's not catching passes, he's a constant figure in the offense that really plays a role in getting blocks, being downfield, being a player that draws attention away from the defense. So I think Sherratt, even if he's not having the greatest season in terms of production-wise, only 10.9 yards per grab, 164 yards, and 3 scores, he's still a constant figure that you have to keep an eye on. I think he will certainly develop more throughout the season. Omar Cooper, 300 yards on 13 grabs and 4 scores. He has been absolute dynamite. Also had that 75-yard jet sweep rushing touchdown. That was really solid from him. So you've seen a lot out of those guys. I think, Keelan Back has been really good. BB, Hemby, these guys are all solid. I mean, you have 3 backs of over 200 yards so far through this season, over 5 yards per carry as well for all 3 of them. Martin right behind them as well. Although, again, it continues to be hard to say because these are great stats, but they're playing just garbage opponents. So I really have to see how they look against a real team in Illinois. No disrespect to the 3 opponents on their schedule, but they're just not in the same class as Indiana, certainly in Bloomington. I also think the offensive line's been really good. I keep talking about this game. Last Friday they played Indiana State. I was able to watch a lot of that game, so I got a good read on Indiana. I watched, everyone obviously during the weekend, but I really paid close attention to this Indiana game. I kept a really keen eye on it, and I saw a lot of positive things. And Pat Coogan at one point in the red zone, there was a fumble, and he smartly, instinctively jumped on the ball, and what would have ended up being a loss of yards on the play ended up being a first down because Coogan was able to get on the ball and make a big heads-up play. He's got great experience. He's been around the game for a while. It's great to have that leadership at your center, and I think that's a big difference maker for this Indiana offense that has just been 52 points per game, 6.94 yards per attempt on the ground, about 8 yards per play. Just been absolute dynamite. When I look at the Illinois defense, the RPs I like. Gabe Jackas has been an absolute dominant player so far, right? 8 total tackles for him, 4 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. He looked really good against Western Michigan. He was solid in that matchup. Miles Scott's been solid in the secondary. Malachi Hood is a really good leader at that linebacking core. Leon Lowry has been really dominant off the edge as well. 9 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack. But I agree with you. I just don't know if I think that there's enough high quality in this Illinois defense to compete with this talented Indiana offense that I think is really going to continue to hit their stride and develop throughout the season here. I think this matchup advantage on paper is just clearly screaming to me Indiana. I think when you put aside the results, just look at roster versus roster right now, I think it just screams out that this Indiana offense is just the better unit overall and will have a better, stronger day. I've been pretty happy with the Illinois defense, right? 2.64 yards per attempt on the ground, giving up 0 rushing touchdowns overall, only 2 passing touchdowns, and they had 1 interception as well. But just something feels right about this Indiana offense. It seems like they're putting themselves in great spots. They're putting all the pieces together here. The running back room has been absolute dominant. Mendoza has been really good as well, and the passing attack looks to be elevating the wide receivers, having somebody that can bail out Sherratt so he's not your top target that you can throw to Cooper and not have to rely on Sherratt the entire time really adds that extra level into your offense. EJ Williams could get involved as well. He's only got a few grabs, but he's a piece that may get involved and be a big difference maker. Something about this Indiana offensive balance and potential here really screams out to me that they could have a really strong day here and eventually lead this team to a victory at home against Illinois.
I think Illinois, they struggled to defend Duke through the air. They got shredded, quite frankly, and they got bailed out by a lot of mistakes from Duke. They ended up having like 5 or 6 turnovers, numerous mistakes. I mean, it was just such a silly, upsetting game where Duke was really close, and they quite frankly probably should have won the game if they didn't make as many mistakes as they did, where they seemingly gifted Illinois the football game, and now you're going up against a passing attack that I think has more cohesion than the Duke one does going into this one. Final analysis and the prediction. Illinois, I think this is a good team, but how good? I mean, I think there's 2 things that are really worrisome for me, and that's that their defensive line's not that skilled. I don't think the wide receivers are all that talented either, and they're going to struggle against these tougher secondaries. And now the run game seems to be molding into a concern as well, despite having a nice physical veteran offensive line. Indiana -4. I'm gonna take the Hoosiers here to get the job done by a touchdown and a field goal. or an extra point, that is, sorry. 28-21. Nick took them by 7 as well. I definitely think this will be a close game. I don't see it being a blowout by any means. I think Illinois is incredibly tough and very resilient, especially if they get down early in games. So I'm going to keep this one a one-score contest. I think Indiana will cover. I don't think they'll ever really be in danger of losing this one, but Illinois will be lurking around, and if you make mistakes like Duke did, they're going to take advantage of them.
Yeah, I think they will certainly take advantage of those mistakes. I think this Indiana team, again, I've said it so many times, and it's really, I feel annoying saying it, but they've not played anyone yet, so this is a big opportunity for them to show that they're still one of the top dogs that can make the playoffs here. The offense has looked really good, the defense looked really good, but now this is when you put it all together, and Curt Cinetti has to really get his guys motivated to win this matchup. I'm expecting that stadium to absolutely be rocking on Saturday night. This is a great primetime national television opportunity on NBC to really show off Bloomington, show off this stadium, show off this team, and show off the energy they had. Last year, you saw a lot of positive things with them. You saw them get to the playoffs here. I think this team is significantly better than the team last year. I think the offense is firing on all cylinders here. I think Mendoza fits like an absolute glove, and he can really elevate this team to the next level. You've already seen that. I think they have a bunch of different options at wide receiver if EJ Williams can step up a little bit, but right now they have a two-headed monster in Cooper and Surratt who have been really solid. The rushing attack has 4 different guys that can really get you yards at any given moment who are absolutely dominant. The defense for Indiana, I think, has a lot of key pieces, a good veteran leadership that really puts them in a good spot here. Look at Illinois. This team's been solid as well. This team is highly ranked for a reason. They went on the road and won in Duke. They clearly have the best win of the two opponents right now. I think Altmaier is a phenomenal player. I think the offense is really solid. I just think the defense doesn't have enough to get the job done. I know I have a little bit of a lower scoring game compared to how I've been singing the praise of these offenses, and it wouldn't shock me if this ends up being a higher scoring affair. I just want a little more conservative. I think there'll be some jitters early on from both teams because they know the stakes of this. A win here puts them into the driver's seat to get to the playoffs and puts both teams in a phenomenal position considering what they have remaining on their schedules here. A win goes a long way. Indiana, I think, needs it slightly more than Illinois, and it would be a big opportunity for Curt Cinetti to get a huge win on the board considering there's just not going to be many quality win opportunities left on the schedule for Indiana. We can obviously talk about that at length as the season goes on, but right now I think Indiana wins this game because I just trust the defense a little bit more. I trust the pieces, veteran leadership there to be strong, get the job done, and get a big win for the Hoosiers.
That's me for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.